Dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
All right, welcome to BenThere, episode 6. I'm excited about today and about today's guest. We're going to get into that in just a second, but just wanted to start this off by reminding everybody the concept of the show. I'm super happy that everybody's watching. This has been insane. Every time we do one of these, just the audience grows, and the feedback I get from this is just been fantastic. It's I do listen to the comments. I read the comments that all of you have been sending in, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it. This started off as something that I was just doing to get through the days of quarantine, but it's turning into something completely different and something everybody seems to be enjoying. So we're gonna keep at it. I'm in the man cave downstairs. We've got the good Wi-Fi going. Everything seems to be on. So I'm focused and ready to go. But again, this concept of this show of BenThere showcases people. That's really the simplification of it. Obviously, I grew up overseas, and those of you that have been watching and been paying attention, the majority of my guests are fellow TCKs. As it's my show, and I'm kind of getting my feet wet here, I like to have a lot of the people that I was lucky enough to grow up with on. Our guest today is not any different from that. He is somebody I've known for 30 years, and we're going to get to him in just a second. But honestly, most of the guests that I'm going to have on the show are TCKs, not necessarily those that I grew up with, although that's what it's been so far. But not everybody else also will be TCKs. I still plan on having a bunch of different people on the show and just let them showcase themselves and showcase who they are and what they do. So that's the concept of BenThere. Like I said, I do appreciate all of your comments that you've been leaving, both in instant message and here online too. So while Wilson and I are going to be talking today, I really recommend you guys, chiming in and mentioning anything you feel free to mention. If you have any questions about what's going on or what we're talking about, or if you have questions of your own that maybe I don't bring up, feel free to write those out here in a little bit too. So, but keep watching. Y'all keep doing this as long as everybody keeps watching. It's kind of a wild situation, but I'm actually booked halfway through June right now. So we're planning on doing these. The majority of these are going to be on Sunday nights, as they have been. But we could break in and do some weeknights and maybe some days too on Saturdays. So it's just a matter of you guys paying attention, watching. But there's a whole lot of list of guests coming up, and it's people that are pretty cool that if you know me, you'll probably know most of them. Some of them you won't know, and that's a good thing too. But they all are either connected to TCKs, third culture kids, or people just that I think are badass people, and I want to have on because I want them to explain themselves and their lives and showcase them. So, but again, thanks for watching. This is, like I said, it started off as just a quarantine thing because I was bored. I got interviewed in January and thought it'd be a good idea. Calvin, giving you another shout out, Calvin, but between Calvin and my brother, who's going to be a guest fairly soon, they talked me into doing this and kind of reaching out to people that I know on the whole TCK spectrum. So that said, it's kind of been therapy for me because here I am. One solid perk that's come out of all this is that I've been able to reconnect with a lot of people I haven't seen physically in years and even talked to in maybe even longer. So these are friends that I've grown up with, and it's kind of cool to hear their stories. More so for me because here I was always thinking I was going through something alone, but it hasn't been that way for a lot of us. We all kind of go through a similar situation as TCKs, and that's why we're doing this. It's just about showcasing people, letting them see that you're not alone in things that you've gone through over the years and whatnot. So again, thanks for joining us today on BenThere. My guest is another one of those friends from many years ago. I've known Wilson Louis since sixth grade. My claim to fame with Wilson is that he put up with me sitting next to him in seventh grade in Mr. McGill's language arts and social studies class back at the old TAS, if you were around, Kodak building specifically, if you remember that. But he and I, when I think of Wilson, I think of him and I playing together on countless sports teams throughout the years, traveling to IASIS tournaments. If you grew up the way we did, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. He's a great one. He's originally from Hong Kong. Spent his younger years and adolescence in Taiwan at Taipei American School. He did graduate the same year I did, 1993, which makes him an old guy too, which I appreciate. So, but he's currently living in Los Angeles with his wife Pam and their two great kids. We're going to talk about Pam later, Wilson, because she's also a TCK and she's also a member of the class of '93. So I want to get into that later. But Wilson also graduated from the University of Hartford in Connecticut and is currently an e-commerce and real estate investment man, working professionally, like I said, in Los Angeles. I want everybody to welcome, if you're watching or if you're listening, Mr. Wilson Louis. Wilson, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You can hear me okay? Everything's good?
Everything's great. Yeah.
Cool. So the way this usually starts is I have the guest. I gave you kind of the Cliff Note quick version of your bio, but I want you to kind of tell the people. The first half of the show is designed to really dive deep into the TCK factor. Mm-hmm. If I have someone on that's a TCK, and you and I were talking prior to going live that you weren't even familiar with the term until the show started. So that's kind of a cool thing. I've only been familiar with it about 15 years now too. So I didn't even know what we were growing up, but there is a term for it. That's who we are. The rest of the show is going to be based on just life and just silly questions and just talking brother to brother. But right now, for the time being, I talked about your bio quickly, but I want you to go into depth. This is what I have everybody do right away, just so that they watch and people can get a feel for who you are that maybe don't know you. But if you don't mind spending a couple minutes, just kind of from where you were born to where you are now, everything in between. Tell us about yourself, man.
All right. So hi. I was born in Hong Kong, but for a very short time, I stayed there for, I think, just a few months, and then I moved to Taiwan. And pretty much I've been in Taiwan all the way till high school, and been at TAS from K to 12. So,
which, by the way, I did not know. I thought you'd moved there in middle school. I didn't realize you were a lifer, so that's kind of cool.
I was there from K to 12. Not a lot of our friends are like that. I think Pam happens to be one too.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So go ahead, man.
So yeah, and after that, after high school, went to Connecticut and went to Hartford, study electrical engineering. And then there's my family, they have places in LA, so they never really liked me going to the East Coast. So they asked me to.
Okay, so I got to stop you real quick. Why the East Coast then? Why right out of high school did you go to Hartford?
Remember Kyle Lester's dad?
Yeah.
He was my counselor.
Okay.
So I didn't know where to go for college at the time, and I had a sit down talk with him, and he said, you know what, I think Hartford, Connecticut would be good for you. And he didn't really tell me why. He just said it would be good for me.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, it was like when I got there, I was like, dude, this place is so not good for me. I didn't know that during high school.
Why not? Well, like, was it just the East Coast, or was it nobody else was there, or like what was the reason?
Well, nobody was there. Most people went to either Boston or New York, Philly, nobody was really in Connecticut. The only person that actually, Tony Kyung from our class.
Who's that?
Tony Kyung.
Oh, Tony. Yeah.
He went to the same school.
Okay.
And Cammy went to the same, but he's younger than us. So.
Okay, a year later, yeah. Yeah, Cammy Lau?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was it, And our campus was a closed campus. It wasn't like open campus, so you're kind of just stuck in the campus the
Yeah.
whole time. And so, yeah, I was so not digging it at first. So thanks to Mr. Webster for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so after
You,
that,
you stuck it out though, right? You finished there?
well, yeah. So
Yeah.
and then I moved to LA afterwards. I mean, I went to Boston and New York on the weekends, and a lot of time
Yeah.
on the weekdays too, skipping class and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and then moved to LA just because the families of my cousins were in LA at the time, and parents just felt that it's closer to family and it's easier to
Right.
travel from Taiwan. 14 hours versus 20
Yeah.
flight.
Totally.
Yeah. So and then I've pretty much stayed in LA ever since.
Okay. Yeah, I always wondered how you went to from TAS to Connecticut to LA. I didn't realize there was a family connection too, though. So that's cool.
Yeah. Because I was the youngest out of all my cousins.
Okay.
So all my cousins were in LA.
Okay.
They also went to TAS. They were just much older than us. They're
Oh.
class of 83, 86, and 87.
Oh wow. So yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
The youngest would have been my first year at TAS because I showed up in '86, which ironically I don't know if you knew this or not, but I spent my first 3 years overseas in Hong Kong. I was an HKIS kid.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. So my experience, I can still remember the day we landed at the old airport. Where you actually flew in between the buildings and whatnot. That was my hello, you're not in the States anymore kind of thing. So, Kai Tak International Airport, right? So, but yeah, I was in third grade and finished third, fourth, and fifth in Hong Kong, and then I moved to Taipei. So I definitely know Hong Kong well, and I'm planning on having a bunch of old HKIS friends on here too. So, but anyway, back to you. So your story.
Yeah. So and so I moved here and pretty much started my life here.
Yeah.
So I met Pam again back here in LA too.
We're gonna hold off on Pam for a little bit because I have a whole segment of questions for you, and I'm gonna let you explain that story in just a little bit. But yeah, your wife Pam, obviously Pam. So but yeah, I've definitely known her for a long time too. But and you guys have two great little kids. It looks like a boy and a girl, right?
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
So I have a beautiful girl and a boy. Girl is 4, and the boy is 8.
All right, so you, if I'm hearing you right, you born in Hong Kong, raised in Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
lived in Connecticut on the east coast of the U.S., spent some time in New York, spent some time in Boston, ended up all the way out in L.A. So I'm going to ask you the same question I start every one of these shows with, man. Where is home?
I think there's I would say there's 2 parts to that answer.
Mm-hmm.
The younger me and the current me. I would say Taiwan is always going to be one of the homes. I remember a long time like somebody asked me that question. It's like, where do you call home?
Mm-hmm.
And they say the easiest way, if you can't figure it out, the easiest way is if you're sick, right? And you want to be somewhere. You don't want to go out if you're sick. Where would you want to be? And that place will be usually what you call home.
Yeah.
And even the first few years in the States, when I get sick or stuff like that, I just wish I'm back in my mom's place in Taipei.
Yeah. Are your parents, by the way, are your parents still in Taipei? Where are your parents at?
They're both in Taipei.
Okay.
So, Taiwan definitely is going to be home for me, but currently I would say LA is home, just because I've been here for 20 plus years and started the family here. My kids are here, and it's kind of have my roots here right now. But if I go back to Taiwan, it's as if I've never left.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever make it back to the East Coast? You ever go back to Connecticut, or is that like a one and done thing? You had it, you did it, move on.
I think the last time I went back was right after 9/11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
What brought you back? Just because, or what?
no, I went there for business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think it was almost immediately after 9/11. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was still rubbles and stuff like that. I was in New York. I didn't go to Connecticut. I was in New York. I went to
Okay.
Boston, and I don't think I've been back ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason, well, you and I have stayed connected, which is kind of cool. I mean, obviously a lot more in the recent years, and I saw you. I hate even admitting this, but it's our 20-year high school reunion, right, in San Diego. That's the last time I saw you in person, right? But you and I have always kind of kept in touch, and you're just a good dude, and I'm happy to say that you're a friend. And that said, when one of the kind of wild parts, and I may have already said this about this whole coronavirus thing, is it's allowed a lot of us to get reconnected to people that we spent a lot of time with as kids. We grew up with, and maybe not. I'm sure you do too, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm sure you have your core group of people that you still stay connected to. Obviously, how you ended up in LA and who you live with. We'll get to all that in just a little bit. And I do the same thing. There's plenty of people that I still talk to and have never really not talked to over the years. But it's kind of, in a weird, twisted way, this coronavirus and the quarantine thing has allowed a lot of us to reconnect through Zoom. You and I have now been on a couple Zooms together with a bunch of old TAS crew and Pam, your wife, and a bunch of people. So after that, you and I, if you don't mind me saying this, you and I kind of talked off the Zoom thing, off of this. We talked about baseball. We talked about coaching. We talked about your kids. You and I had a good hour and a half chat, I think it was. And it was awesome. I could have kept talking, right? So unfortunately, work gets involved, right? Yeah. But yeah, we then that conversation and the number one reason I wanted you on here, obviously you're a brother to me too, but this is about TCKs and the TCK experience. Mm-hmm. And as someone who looks like me, majority of my people, or the people that I've had on the show, have all looked like me and have talked about their TCK experiences. Yeah. And those of you that are watching, again, if you're not familiar with the term, it's third culture kid, someone who grew up outside their passport country. I guess I almost feel like I should apologize because I had so many friends like you, like Mark Johansson. I mean, you and I talked before we went live, our volleyball team that we played on in high school. I was the only white boy. I was the odd man, right? So I was the weird guy. So, but you guys were equally important to me and significant to me as everybody else I knew at TAS. You guys accepted me as a brotherhood, and that's how we all kind of just got along. Never once until you told me this about a week and a half ago, I never even put it together that people that didn't look like me may have had a different experience, especially someone like yourself, because, and you can correct me, I'm going to give you ample time to talk about this, but I hung up with you the other day, just eyes wide open, like, holy shit. Like that, he had the same experience, but he didn't. He went through the same exact thing that I did, but he didn't. And there's so many people, I almost feel stupid saying this because I never realized it, and I think a lot of people, just because I think the one cool thing about TS when we were there, and I'm hoping it's still that way, and just kids in general, nobody cared where you were from. Tim and I talked about this, Sean McKean and I talked about this, Camille Funk, and even Roman, last time we were all on here, we all talked about the in my opinion, and maybe you see things differently, obviously people kind of stuck to their little cliques, and that's just high school in general. But when you grow up the way we did, walls kind of get knocked down. I had zero problems playing volleyball with you guys and considering you guys all my friends and my brothers, because we were, through a sports season, but it extended outside the gym. It extended outside of sports. Like I said, I started this conversation or this podcast by saying I've known you more so since we sat next to each other in Mr. McGill's class, right? So having to learn that damn if poem, which I still talk about to this day. When I was teaching, I would always tell my students about If by Rudyard Kipling. And those of you that have Mr. McGill, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can still quote it today, as I'm sure you can. But getting back to what I wanted to kind of get into here, obviously I don't look Asian, but yet I feel more Asian than anything because of how I grew up. You know, and most of the people, Tim talked about it, Roman talked about it, Camille talked about it, Sean talked about it. We had this perception of we were in somebody's culture, we were in somebody's country. We knew exactly the passport we held and who we were and what we looked like to the outside world there. Never in my head did I, and I maybe owe you guys an apology, did I think that maybe it was a little bit different from you? Because here you are, a Hong Kong guy who grew up in Taiwan, yet went to an American school that was full of Americans that look like me and Europeans that look like me. You probably felt, and I'm not trying to pressure you into saying anything, but I want you know, you're honest. Everything we talked about, you felt more connected to our culture, and then yet, as soon as you had the chance to go back to that American culture, it wasn't exactly how you expected. Am I wrong in saying that?
No. I mean, in some levels, yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah. So I hope I laid that out right. I probably didn't, and maybe skipped over a couple of things. But if you don't mind, you know, we talked about warehouse home, and I totally understand that. If you don't mind telling me and telling the people watching, because I truly know that a lot of people, not just watching right now, but watching this on the replays, they'll connect with you and connect with your story. And it's a story that I never realized, you know, and I feel bad about that because, I mean, so many people that I consider friends, I just assumed they were going through the exact same experience as I was, and they're not. So if you don't mind talking about that, you know, in terms of your experience growing up as a TCK, someone who was from Hong Kong, lived in Taiwan, what you had is in terms of friendships and things like that, what you made in terms of friendships and things like that, ended up in the States only to maybe not be accepted right away. If you could kind of go through that whole conversation you and I had on the phone last week, I know that's putting you kind of on the spot, but
No,
I want you to talk about that. So go ahead, man.
I think the first thing you got you kind of forgot is, you know, to go to TA, you can't be a Taiwan citizen.
Yeah. You had to have a foreign passport. So
foreign passport. So in that sense, where if you grow up from, you know, a country that your passport's not, pretty much everybody in TAS is a TCK in some level. But you know, it's not till like later on in our high school years where there's a lot of kids that really grew up in Taiwan, went to the local Chinese schools, and then they transferred into TAS.
Yeah.
Those I think will probably not have as much of an issue than people like me or other friends that like us that's been there forever, you know.
Yeah.
So like I said, I've been there since kindergarten. So you got to understand, like, from pretty much the beginning when I started school, I was in a Western culture, even though I lived in Taiwan. But my entire day is pretty much in a Western culture. And I don't know if you remember or not, back then, there were more Caucasians than there are Asians in TAS.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yeah, totally. I was one of them.
Yeah. There's probably like, you know, 5 or 10 black color hair, and then every just blonde pretty much everywhere. And so most of my friends were Caucasian. You know, well, the Tom is not, but
Chicky, yeah. He's come up twice now, so I hope he's watching. So.
Definitely not Taiwanese. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like people like you, Tim. It was all Caucasian. So in my world, that was the norm. I have no exposure really to what the local Chinese student kids were going through. I don't have any siblings either, so my own interaction with actual Taiwanese is through my parents and my relatives, and even my relatives. A lot of my cousins that went to the local Taiwanese schools, they don't see me as the same. They always saw me as like, hey, he's the ABC, or the Western kid. Especially my mom's side of the family. They don't live in Taipei. They live in Yilan, which is the eastern part of Taiwan. So they're really, really local Taiwanese. And every time, like, I see them, which is usually over Chinese New Year, they see me and they would have the same reaction as if they saw a white person that just walked.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So, okay. But I was so young, I didn't really, that whole thing didn't really bother me. But if you really ask me, growing up, I would say from K all the way to middle school, I was almost entirely Western exposure. So to me, like the Western culture, like the American way, is the only culture I know.
Right.
All my friends were white. Not that many Asian kids at the time.
Yeah, who was it that you told me the other day that you first saw, or who asked you to go play, or I can't remember the guy's name. Who was it? Was it Sean? Who was it?
The first person that I ever went to a sleepover party was Roman.
Roman Gradell, there you go. Okay. I knew it was somebody we'd already talked to. So,
he remembers or not, but he was the first friend I went to his house for a sleepover party. And so, pretty much that's all I knew. And it's not until towards the end of middle school and high school where there's more local Taiwanese kids that transfer into the school, then I had the opportunity to use that as a bridge to kind of get in touch with the Chinese culture. If you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that was what I was going through. So aside from school is kind of like a bubble. It's like, I mean, TAS is kind of like a really nice sheltered bubble. You get in there, you're in your own world, and everybody's kind of like different race, different ethnicity, different culture, and you come from all over the world, and nobody gives a crap because everybody's not from Taiwan, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So we kind of grew up like that, and we're used to that. Once you get out of school and you're in actually Taipei City, I mean, people know you're not from Taiwan. First of all, because back then all the students in Taiwan schools have to cut their hair; they got to shave their head.
Yeah.
So we're the only ones with weird heads. So it's pretty obvious. I'm like, dude, you did not go to that was either that or you're a gangster or something. Yeah. So immediately they know that you're not local Taiwanese. So from what my standpoint was, like, when I saw your show and learned about the TCK, I'm thinking, well, you felt that strongly after graduation and you came to the States, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, this thing is kind of like hit me since I was young. I was like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Like this whole Western culture thing is not what I'm taught at home. It's not my relatives, it was kind of weird fitting in. Even meeting my cousins, like my mom's side of the family. Every year I see them, it's like they don't really see me as the same, And then finally got used to it in high school, all excited, like, okay, I get it, And then I'm thinking, okay, I know the Western style. I'm over to the States for college, and it's like all over again. They don't see me as a Westerner.
Yeah, because if I heard you right the other day, it was almost more like you felt American, you felt European, you almost felt white Caucasian, right? So it was like you couldn't, in a weird way, you couldn't even wait to get back to the States because you finally this was going to be your people. This is where you were going to feel comfortable, things like that. Yeah.
And it's more like I know what they're talking about. I understand culture, but they don't believe I do. So they kind of put up the wall right there. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like how you were saying in your previous shows. Like it was hard to break the ice with a lot of them.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this whole thing's all over again. So this sucks. It takes a lot of adjusting and getting used. Yeah.
Well, that brings me right up to the acclimation question. You've kind of talked about that because you almost had, I guess, in a way, 3 acclimation processes because how old were you? Okay, so you were what, kindergarten? Is that what you said when you moved to Taiwan?
Yeah, well, I was just a couple of months old when I moved to
Oh, okay. So that's really all you knew. You never really lived in Hong Kong then. You were born there, but never.
born there. Yeah.
So actually, am I fair to say that I know Hong Kong better? Well, I wouldn't say better than you, but there was a time I probably knew Hong Kong better than you.
I had to go because my grandparents were still there throughout.
Oh, okay.
Throughout the whole
Okay.
time. Yeah. So I
Okay.
every 3 months.
Okay, so you have an acclimation. It's so wild to me, and I almost, like I said, I feel so naive in the fact that I never realized this, and I'm sure a lot of people that were over there with us and look like me, or the people that I've even had on previously, never even crossed our mind because in my opinion we were all the same. I'm not going to be so naive to say like I didn't see color and things like that. That's crap. That I know that. I'm a white boy. I know you're from Asia, so right. But
White boy.
yeah, right. Yeah. But I there are times. I mean, still to this day, I think it's safe in saying that. I mean, Sean McKean would vouch for this. I think it's same with Tim. Tim was in first grade when he moved overseas, and Camille's the same way. We almost feel more of a connection to Asia than our passport country here in the States.
Yeah.
And I've been back on and off 20 years. So acclimation wise, you are someone, and I get it now. Like there's a lot of folks like you. You didn't just have to acclimate to going from Taipei to the States in that experience. You had to acclimate within family too. You had to explain yourself within family, and that's something I never even crossed my mind. And it's when you told me that the other day, I was just like, holy cow, wow! Like I just assumed you were in the same boat as I was, even though you weren't. So you had the family acclimation. You had the acclimation from being technically from Hong Kong into Taiwan. And once it's funny you brought that up because I was going to ask you that. Like once you got outside the school gates, how did you perceive yourself? And then the acclimation process of being Asian yet feeling American coming or European coming back to the States, and you couldn't wait. The way you described it to me the other day is like you couldn't wait. Like finally, I'm going to feel at home, blah blah blah, and yet you didn't exactly get that right away because you were kind of shunned simply because of your physical traits. Right? Is that fair to say?
I remember when I was a kid, my mom had a Chinese tutor after school to teach me Chinese, right?
Yeah.
And the tutor happened to be a teacher at a Chinese school near my house. I remember one time she was late and she asked if I could go to the school to meet her, and she's still having her class. I think she was teaching 3rd or 4th grade kids.
Yeah.
And I walked in. She introduced who I am, and obviously they all have their hair shaved and uniform.
Did they have the scarves around their neck? Because I always remember that about Taiwan, like local schools, they always wore the scarves. And
the girls have to have short hair that can't pass their ears. Remember?
Oh wow, yeah.
The boys have to shave their head.
They're always dressed in yellow uniforms too. I remember that, like walking around. Yeah.
So I remember, not a single kid would talk to me. They looked at me as they saw like a really blonde white guy standing there, and throughout the class, I just stood there by myself. And I'm like, I speak Chinese, right? Like, there's no need to be afraid. But they just looked like I don't know how to communicate. That's how it was. So at that point, that was the first time I think it kind of hit me like, whoa, okay, so I guess I don't fit in here.
Yeah.
Yet
But so did you had a Hong Kong passport? Is that what it was?
I mean, back then it was British passport. So
okay. Oh yeah, right. Because okay, that makes a lot more sense. Man, I boggles my mind in such a weird but twist. Like, I just assumed everybody, and maybe like I said, this is condescending, and yet I'm almost embarrassed to admit that. I just assumed everybody went through the exact same thing we did. But yeah, once you got past those gates of TAS, you were thrown into a culture
that's not really where you are.
right. Yeah. I mean, it made sense for someone that looks like me, but not necessarily for you. And I mean, there's so many guys off the top of my head that you and I played volleyball with basically all those guys. I'm sitting here thinking like they probably went through the exact same thing that you did.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever talk about that, or was it just like a taboo topic, or how did that work?
I think so. I mean, for one, I didn't know there was such a term, TCK.
Yeah.
We really didn't talk about it. And also, I think everybody was in the same boat. So really no need to talk about it because we
you guys got it.
I just got it, just how it is.
It's almost in a weird way, and I am not claiming to be any, professor or scholar at this, just the fact that we lived it, but it's almost like you're a fourth culture kid, not even a third culture kid. You're right. So you and I talked about that. So, but yeah, that just opened my eyes in so many ways because I just assumed everybody was going through what I was going through. And that's almost selfish of people like me. But, you're just as much a part of this community as anybody. And yet, if not more, because I just think of TAS and I think back in the day and walking out the guard shack and, my experience of what it was like to walk down the streets of Taipei, being 6 foot whatever, and a white kid with red hair and freckles, right? So I was supposed to, be kind of a standoffish, and people didn't talk to me much outside the gates. But then you get into taxis, and I mean, you speak fluent Chinese in both Mandarin and Cantonese too. Is that fair to say? So, but yeah, I mean, I didn't do that, but nobody expected that from me. I can't imagine you would every single day that we were growing up, you would have to flip cultures. You would leave your house one culture, get in maybe, a bus or a cab to get to TAS, another culture, and then be in another culture like that. I'm in awe. And then the culture that you felt most comfortable with, you finally thought you were going to be smack in the middle of it as soon as you got back to the States, probably, and ironically, more so than me, because I actually felt more close to, obviously the people that I grew up with, but just I felt such a connection to Asian culture. And then I went to a small school in North Carolina to start. And I think you probably heard me say this. It's kind of my go-to here, but I got off the plane and moved to North Carolina and went to a small school, and people either thought it was fantastic the way I grew up. They thought it was really cool and wanted to hear it. Some people thought they could care less. And again, that's fine. And then people thought that I lived in California. That's what I was talking about, right? So Taipei meaning California. So, but you, on the other hand, just based on physical appearance, you didn't have that choice. It was like, this is who it is. And did you ever get the question when you moved to college? Did you ever get asked if you even spoke English or where you were from? How did that work out?
Well, I came in as a international student, right? So they put me in an international student dorm.
Okay.
And funny enough, I was put into a suite. We had 2 roommates, so there's 3 people in the room. One was me, 1 black, and 1 white. So,
really? Yeah. And that was the international. Where was everybody from?
Well, I think the black guy came from Jamaica or something.
Okay.
And he was always dealing drugs and stuff like that. So he was more, just typical
stereotypical. Yeah, sadly, yeah.
White kid was legally blind. That's in music school, and the super, goody type of kid, and I'm kind of the in between, guy. So that was super awkward. The black guy's always picking on him, the white guy, and the white guy's always complaining to me, and the black guy always makes fun of the white guy with me. So, I mean, it was just, And
do you still keep in touch with those guys?
No, I don't even know where they
are. Yeah. No, I get it.
But for me, when I think what was more of a shock to me was my idea of America at the time was okay, it's America. It's where all the diversities are. It's all these different people that are there. So that's totally gonna fit in perfectly.
Yeah.
It was so not the case. I mean, So it's like I got there, they see me, and I was only there were only like 90 some Asian students in that whole campus.
Really?
Yeah,
In all of Hartford? University of Hartford?
yeah, there were only
Wow.
some Asian kids. So pretty much, they look at you, they know you're not from there. They, you know, they wouldn't automatically come talk to you and stuff like that. Um, so that was tough. Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like, hey, back in high school, but it's so not. And
Yeah.
it's diverse in the sense that there are different people from different countries, different part of the world.
Yeah.
Uh, I feel like in America they're not that open to accepting other
It's
thoughts.
supposed to be a melting pot, man. It's supposed
Exactly.
to be. So yeah, I
You're,
get it.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Diversity and I mean racism and like things like that is just so much stronger here. That makes it so much harder.
All right. So you brought it up. Did you experience racism? I guess, like I said, I came back. My whole concept was like, here I am. I look the part. I'm supposed to be the part, but I had never experienced those kind of things. I mean, people didn't quite understand where I was from and where I grew up and where I spent the last 10 years of my life, but I never had to deal with any of that. Like in terms of Hartford or in LA. I mean, you're in LA right now. How is the racism factor working
They're
out for you? I mean,
always there.
yeah.
Now I don't experience it that much. I mean, there are still, especially what's going on right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I don't even know. I mean, I'm embarrassed to even ask, but is that something that's popping up right now with you still? Like you and Pam both?
It actually happened to Pam just not a couple of weeks ago, but not with me. Um, I guess we being in LA,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different race of people here. So you're kind of lucky that it doesn't happen as much as other parts of America. But because of the pandemic, it's coming back up again. You know,
Yeah.
uh, happened to Pam actually twice in this
Really?
past month. Yeah, yeah.
That bothers me. Just as a person of the world, man, that bothers me. It's not even an American thing. So, um, I I apologize, but that pisses me off for you. So, um, how about okay? So all that aside, then I always ask this question too. I mean, we had such similar upbringings, and yet we had totally different upbringings. But in terms of a positive and negative, aspect of growing up at TCK or growing up, I mean, technically, I mean, you and I joked about this before we went live, but uh, I grew up overseas. You grew up overseas, right? So South China Sea, right? So positives and negatives, if you don't mind talking about that, like what are the positive and negatives that came out of growing up the way you did?
Um, I think the positive is you're exposed to different cultures.
Mm,
Obviously the Asian culture, the Western culture, and it kind of preps you later on in life to be more international and um, be more diverse
mm,
because you never know where you're going to end up, what you're going to be doing, what kind of people you're going to be dealing with.
yeah,
Uh, like my work previously, I had to travel a lot, pretty much all over the world. I worked for a company that was a huge supplier and design house for housewares. So we made things for Starbucks and
oh, cool.
Crate and Barrel and those kind of stuff. So I had to visit pretty much every Starbucks in the world.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so
Did you get to the big one in Shanghai, or was that after you?
the the what?
I guess the world's biggest Starbucks right now is in Shanghai. I never went to it when I was over there, but like apparently it was.
Yeah, the refinery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was actually at the opening because
Oh, really?
invited me over for the opening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to go to China, Japan, Turkey, Middle East, Europe,
Really?
pretty much everywhere in the world. So growing up like that made it really easy because uh, I didn't really have that much of a culture shock going to all these different places. I kind of
Mhm.
knew like how these people are, what their culture is like. You're always ready to deal with the people there because there's different manners and things like that. So I guess the pro is that you're pretty much prepped up to be more international.
Yeah.
Um, the con I would say, uh, but this is only when you're growing up, okay? Not into adulthood, but like when you're growing up, you kind of feel like you don't belong anywhere.
Yep.
You're not this, you're not that. You're kind of this, but you're not 100% that. Uh,
If there's anything you said today that I can relate to, that's it right there, man.
yeah,
So,
and you'll almost always be considered as a outsider. Um,
mhm.
you're never, even when I'm in Taiwan or when I go to China.
You still feel that way in Taiwan?
Me right now, no,
Okay.
but like growing up,
Yeah.
you're not gonna 100% be like them, and you always got that feeling that they see you as an outsider.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess another con would be like people's first initial reaction or their towards you when they meet you for the first time. Um, a lot of people they don't know what to do with you. Yeah,
Yep.
they don't know like how do I relate to this guy? That's kind of and
Yep.
then it takes time for them to understand and realize and yeah.
Do you feel that more in the States or do you feel it more overseas?
I think more in the states.
Yeah. I
Ironic,
wondered about that. Yeah. No,
ironic,
I
more in the states.
yeah.
It's funny because America, I feel like it's a place where you're supposed to accept and more open to different cultures, and just because it's a melting pot, right? It's like, but it's actually the least out of all the places I've been in the world.
Which it's funny you say that. I mean, I've been back in the state. Well, you know my story. I was overseas for 10 years. I mean, I was 7 when we moved there and 17 when I came back, and then I was back in the States for 20, and then I went over back to Shanghai for a couple of years, and then I came back to the States. But I agree with you. I mean, American passport, proud of it, love it. I wouldn't want to be anything else, but I've noticed a change, and it's sad. It's hard for me to see that because I do think this is a melting pot. This is what this whole entire country is based on that.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So what's going on right now? I mean, I've fought it. I don't want to get too much into politics on the show because this is a show about accepting everybody and everybody's opinions matter. And I'm cool with that. But the foundation of this country is that it's supposed to be accepting. We're all from somewhere, no, unless you're Native American, nobody in this country right now, has exact roots from here, and that's hard for me because of, a blessing growing up the way I did. Like you, I was able to see so many different cultures and people and relate, and things like that. I don't think I'm better or worse of how I grew up. It's just what it was, right? It's the people I met, that was my story, and the way I grew up, that was my story, and proud of it, and so thankful that I was in that position because I was able to come back here with that perspective. I truly feel that those of us that grew up outside of our passport country, and even even you, I mean, I know Hong Kong to Taiwan is not that big of a deal to some people, but it is, right? It's a different culture.
Mhm.
But uh, that's the part that I struggle with here being in America, is because I love this country. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my US passport, but it's sad to see that people aren't being accepted the way they were. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're truly American, you're from somewhere else. Your roots, your bloodline, all that. I'm Irish German. I'm not going to sit here and tell you my family's totally American. I mean, we were all from somewhere, and this should be a melting pot. That's what this country's based on. That's what my grandparents moved over here from somewhere else. It's like, come on now, like let's get it right again. So I understand what you're saying, is what I'm getting at. I mean, and it bothers me that this isn't technically considered a melting pot anymore, and I don't know. It bothers me. So just so you're aware of that, there are
Exactly.
folks that bothers. So yeah,
It was that was the part that actually shocked me. I
yeah,
thought, just if anywhere in the world, this place would know how I feel and how it should be.
yeah. Because you could relate. You could relate to me. You could relate to people that look like me. And here you were almost. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're almost like super excited to get here.
Yeah,
So you could start that experience, and it wasn't.
it
You
was
know,
the opposite. It was
yeah, and it's that's frustrating to me, but we this country was founded on being a melting pot, and welcoming to all. Give me your tired, you're poor. That's what's our foundation was supposed to be, and yet when I got to Taipei, like when I got to Hong Kong, I felt more accepted too. Like it was never. Sometimes you feel more accepted outside your home country, and that's what it should have been for you. And I can't make apologies and speak for a whole entire nation, but I just want you to know that I feel for you, because as someone who grew up the way you did, you couldn't wait to get here and experience that. And it didn't really necessarily turn out that way. And yet I hope, it sounds like you and Pam are doing well, and things are going okay. So I hope, you built a life here, and that's awesome, man. And it's something that I hope you're doing well with and you're proud of, because and we'll talk about your kids in just a second, because they almost have the reverse effect, because they're born in the States, I'm assuming, right?
yeah, they're both born here.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll get into that in just a second, because that is one of my questions for a later part of this show. But before we get into that's kind of stuff, let's talk about. I mean, you talked about the positives and the negatives, but what about what you miss the most? What do you miss the most about Asia? What do you miss the most about the TAS experience, the TCK experience? What do you miss the most? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. So,
Well, what do I miss about TAS? I mean, TAS, the school. I miss the school itself. The school
by
is
the way, it's Taipei American School for those of you that may not know. So go ahead.
the school itself was awesome,
Yeah.
and you know how awesome it is until you come here and you go to the schools here and you're like, wow, this sucks.
Mhm.
Um,
You're talking to a teacher of 18 years, so yeah. But I get it. You're fine. You're fine. So go ahead.
I mean everything, like the
Yeah.
food, and like we had great food in TAS,
Yeah.
and then you come here, and then you go to go to the cafeteria, like,
Yeah.
what?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I taught in the public schools for 13 years here, and I don't know what that was, but it wasn't food. So
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
The school itself, I miss. Taipei, the city itself, I miss.
Yeah.
IASIS, actually.
Yeah. Right.
Great.
So let me stop you there, because I got to explain, because there are probably people listening that don't understand. He and I keep mentioning IASIS. It's the equivalent. How do I explain this right? Here in the States, because I'm coaching currently. Well, not right now, but I've coached in the States, and the equivalent of your state tournament here, where the best teams in each region or each classification here play for a state title. Our state title was technically all the international schools of Southeast Asia, and hence the international. I'm trying to think of what ISIS stood for now, but I think if that's somewhat of it, international schools of Southeast Asia, things like that. We would, when I say this out loud, don't, maybe you do too. I feel so spoiled when I say this, right? But we would get on airplanes and we would fly to other countries. It wasn't going, on a bus, a school bus to the next town over. It was we got on airplanes and flew places. So we were able to play the international schools and the American schools throughout Southeast Asia. So when we won a quote state title, it was basically winning against schools and players from different international schools and American schools. So that's what ISIS was. It still is too. And I'm so it's cool to kind of look at TAS now and see that that's still a thing. ISIS is still a thing, and it's a very cool thing. So
Yeah, and that, I mean, IASIS, I missed that.
yeah.
Opportunity to travel to all these different countries. and play with people from the different schools that also has the same mixed culture
Yeah,
background. And
totally.
that whole thing where everybody is in the same boat and
Mhm.
going through the same experience. Just you're doing it in Philippines or Indonesia or Hong Kong, and I'm just doing it in Taiwan. And I mean that whole experience I kind of miss. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I mean, I was thinking, I was telling my wife this the other day, but I think in 4 years of high school, I think I went on like 20, 24 trips or something like that related. We just in terms of sports, because I played like you, I played a lot of sports, and it wasn't just IASIS. We play pre-IASIS. We do Christmas tournaments. We do everything. So it was just like, yeah, I mean, if you were in the sports team and you made varsity, I mean, your path was set, and it was awesome. And it's an experience like, nothing. I don't even know if anything can compare to it here in the States, because most take nothing away from here. But like the state, I coach high school baseball, and state getting to the state tournament is everything, and that's awesome, and it's as it should be, and I feel for the kids that lost their senior year this year. But when I sit back and try to explain our upbringing and what we got to do for sports, we we flew to how many countries, just senior year alone. I think I went to 6 different countries. So it's just
Sounds about right.
there's a spoil factor, and yet I never felt spoiled. I mean, I think the cool thing was we were all humbled enough. We all knew that we were pretty damn lucky to be doing what we were doing. So um but let's move on now, if that's okay with you. I like you though, I do miss that too. I just miss Taipei. Do you go back much?
Oh yeah, we try to go back once a year just so the grandparents can see the kids.
Cool. What
Yeah,
is it, usually Christmas time or Chinese New Year time, or when do you? What's that?
usually now, like
Now?
break,
Yeah. So you would be going back now in summertime. Well, almost summertime. So
because of the pandemic, we're not going
yeah.
back this year.
Yeah. No, I get that totally. Which actually brings me to your lovely wife. I've known Pam as long as I've known you, if not more, and she's awesome, man. I know the other day when we were on Zoom, she was giving me crap because she said like even since 6th grade, all I've ever done is give her crap, but it's because I like her, man. She's awesome. Your wife is a good one. Pam, you're married to a TCK. I mean, but I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable, because I didn't even know this either. You Pam was in our grade. She grew up with us. Um, there's two sides of this question here, so I want to get this out real quick, and I want you to explain it. The first thing is, you and Pam didn't date in high school, right? You didn't even know each other, really.
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
I know of her, but we didn't hang out. She played, she was a different crowd. We didn't
Yeah.
hang out. Yeah.
That's no. It's so funny because I didn't even know the story. I thought just you two got together after high school, or you knew each other, whatnot. And then the other day on Zoom, and I keep going back to this, but one of the cool things, the experiences of this COVID thing, 90% of it sucks, but the 10% that doesn't suck is the fact that I've been able to reconnect with so many people. This show is started out of COVID, so I mean, I don't know where this is going, and it's awesome. I've got tons of guests from all different cultures and backgrounds, but it cracks me up. I thought that just you two knew each other the whole time and whatnot, but Pam started to kind of share the story of how you two got together, and the old name Ryan Aquino comes into the picture. And I know Ryan, Ryan, obviously. But if you don't mind, can you tell the people how your story with Pam, like how'd you guys going from classmates that didn't really know each other to husband and wife to two little great kids? What's your story there?
So I've known Pam since kindergarten, pretty much.
That's crazy. Yeah.
We were in the same class in second grade, and maybe some other grades. But I never really noticed her. We didn't hang out with the same crowd throughout the
Yeah.
whole time in TAS, which is all the way to high school. And so what when I moved back to LA, I stayed with Ryan. He said
Yeah.
Ryan Aquino also went to TAF, and he was my roommate at the time. And I think one winter or this summer, and I don't know if you remember back then. lot of us would fly back when we're still in school and fly
Oh
back.
yeah, I was one of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you fly back to Taiwan for the summer and catch up with friends and whatever, and then you fly back to school, right?
Yep.
And I think Pam was on EVA airline, and they you know,
Eva.
yeah,
Yeah.
China airline, and then they kind of gave her seat away. And she made a fuss at the airport saying, like, look, my school starts tomorrow. I got to get back. So they made a deal and put her on the last seat on EVA airline. And the last seat happens to be right next to Ryan Aquino.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they started talking, and she was like, hey, I'm going to be coming to LA. Who's there? And Ryan's like, oh, this and that's there. Wilson's my roommate. Hey, if you ever come up, look us up. And she came and she actually looked us up. This and that's there.
It's awesome. Yeah. What a small world, right? Who would have thought she'd be with Ryan Kid? What's he doing now?
He is still here in LA. He actually,
Okay.
yeah, he's like he has a daughter.
Okay.
He has a daughter that's about the same age as my daughter.
Okay.
I think just like a couple weeks younger.
Okay.
He lives not far from me actually, and he works here too. He works at Google. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
You still talk to Todd? People that are watching have no idea who we're talking about right now, but you and I do.
I spoke to him last night. Yeah.
Yeah. Todd's a good one, man. He's a wild guy. I love that guy. Well, speaking of kids, raising kids, we talked about Pam, and that's an awesome story. I didn't know the story until we all Zoomed the other night.
Ryan would be a perfect TCK example.
Yeah. Right.
He's a kid that grew up in Taiwan, not so good in Filipino Tagalog.
Yeah.
Good in Chinese.
Yeah. Right. So totally.
He grew up in Taiwan. People see him and like say, "Hey, look, little Filipino knows how to speak Chinese."
Yeah.
He does that all the time. So
probably
imagine what he goes through, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, totally. And that's the whole shtick. Yeah. Like I want to talk to people like that. I want to get there because I always think everybody was the exact same. They went through the exact same thing I did, and that's just not true. And there's so many aspects and so many different details of being a TCK. We're not all the exact same, and yet we're under the umbrella of being that TCK. And that's the exact same kind of person, like you, like Ryan, like people like that I want to talk to too. I don't want it to just be, obviously it's my show. I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to put on, who I want to put on. And obviously these first couple shows have been people that I know and trust and whatnot, but I want to talk to people like Ryan. So if you ever talk, hopefully he's watching. I don't know if he's watching, but just make sure he watches the replay of this. So, but I'd love to have him on, love to have Todd on, people like that. So, but before we started talking about Ryan and Todd, we started talking about you kids. Mm-hmm. You've got two. How old are they?
4 and 8.
4 and 8. Okay. So raising kids in the States, it's almost like the reverse TCK thing, because this isn't how you and Pam grew up. You didn't grow up in the States. Do your kids understand how mom and dad grew up versus how they are currently growing up? Or maybe a better question is, do they see the difference? Are they realizing even at these young ages that, mom and dad look a certain way, we're growing up a certain way, but then we have this experience of overseas? What's the connection, or what's the explanation maybe of them understanding? Yeah, go ahead.
I think for my daughter, she's too young to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
She's only 4.
Yeah.
My son is starting to get that. He goes to a Mandarin immersion school.
Oh, cool.
So the school is actually half English and half taught in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily, a lot of his kids are either mixed, like parents are half white, half Chinese, or something like that. There's a good diversity in his school. I don't think he will have the same experience as we do, and we try very hard to let him understand that where his roots are, where he came from, the Chinese part of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why we always take them back to Taiwan.
So how many languages do your kids speak?
My son actually speaks English, Chinese, and Spanish.
Spanish. Wow. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Being in LA. Yeah.
Well, our nanny, when we got the nanny, we told her like
Yeah.
only speak Spanish to him. So since he was a kid, his first language is Spanish.
Wow.
Yeah. So he actually didn't know how to speak English yet. He
Mhm.
knew how to speak Spanish first, and English came last actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impressive, man. I can barely hang on to English. I like to, well, you've heard me on these Zoom calls. I like to think I still speak Chinese, but my American accent gets in the way. So, do they understand where, their upbringing versus mom and dad's upbringing? Do they understand? Well, I mean, do you guys talk to them about how you two grew up? Like, how
Slowly,
does that work?
slowly, yeah. I think slowly my son's getting it.
Yeah.
Because we tell them stories all the time. We took them back to TAS,
Oh, really? Cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
to
Yeah.
school and to show them like, hey, this is where we grew up. This is the environment. Taipei.
Yeah.
Uh, the schools here. You have the school. The teachers are Caucasian. You're taught English. You get to meet all these big people, but it's very different than LA, where you guys are growing up right now. So we try to let them understand, and I think my son's getting it, but my daughter's too young.
She's too young. Yeah. She's only 4. Yeah. It's funny because the way I sit here and think about it, I mean, it's entirely the opposite of what I grew up with, right? So I moved. Your son's 8. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
basically
So
the reverse of you.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's almost the reverse of my upbringing because I was 7.5 when we moved to Hong Kong.
Yeah,
I spent my 8th birthday, 9th birthday, and 10th birthday in Hong Kong, and then we moved to Taipei. So that's wild when I sit here and think about that because you're yeah, basically your kid. I was your kid's age when I was in Hong Kong. So yeah, it doesn't seem like that long ago, and yet not to age us, it was forever ago, right? So um, let's talk about this then in terms of advice to. I mean, like I tried to tell you this. I know it probably doesn't mean that much to you, or maybe you didn't think it was a big deal, but you opened my eyes to a whole different aspect of being a TCK. I'm so glad you did. We actually started talking about it. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but like when you and I talked on the phone, it was 100% about just baseball and coaching and your kid and things like that. And then it just kind of took a turn into the show and what the show's all about. And when I heard your story, man, I just I thought, wow, like I just right, my mind was open because I just assumed everybody went through the same experience that I did, and it's not the case. Um, but that said, in terms of advice, I mean, you're not alone, obviously. I hope you truly know that. But there are so many kids currently going through not only my experience, but your experience. Someone who is technically Asian by birth and yet doesn't necessarily fit in Asia, and yet comes to the States or Europe and thinking that they're going to find their way, and it's not always a welcoming door. Do you have any advice for current or future TCKs that went, in terms of your experience, that are going through the exact same thing? Because you and I both know TAS is a lot different now. A lot of international schools in Asia are a lot different now. There are more kids going through the experience that you went through than what I went through. Do you have any advice for those current kids that are going through the same thing you did?
Yeah. I mean, in hindsight, I think what we've been through, the whole experience, I think it's wonderful. It's
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's not an experience that everybody gets to have, and I think it's something that is just thinking back right now. It's all positive, more than it is negative. Um, I would say to embrace it. Embrace this whole third culture kid experience because
Yeah.
it will come more useful than you think. Um, and just be prepared for it. It takes time to get used to. I think the problem with us is nobody gave us a heads up of
Yeah.
what
Well, There was no, I mean, we're old, dude. Let's just be honest. You know, like there was no internet, there was no guideline, there was no template. There was just like, here it is, and you guys are kids. You're supposed to play together, so go play.
Yeah,
And that's it. And yet, the one side of that was like, crap. What the hell do I do? The other side of it is, look who we are. You and I are sitting here right now chatting. I mean, I've known you 30 years, and we come from totally different backgrounds, but yet we don't. Right. So it's a beautiful thing the way I see it. But I want you to. I didn't see it the way, through your eyes, just like you didn't see it through my eyes. And that's a beautiful thing and yet a frustrating thing. And that's why I know there's so many, having been in Shanghai for 2 years too, I saw it on the campus I was working at, the school I was working at, more or less, and I mean this respectfully, brother, but like more people look like you. And so they were going through what you probably went through. And that's why I think it's such a big thing. And I want to get the word out. Like if you could, continue to give advice or whatnot, embrace it. That's awesome. But I want those kids to know that they're not alone, just like you're not alone. You and Pam are both born alone. So.
Yeah. And I mean, just, be prepared. You can use this to your benefit because having this experience as a third culture kid, you can fit in anywhere. You can fit in with anyone if you want. And I can't say that for everybody that are not third culture kids, but I can tell you that if you have this experience, you can. You just got to figure out how to do it. Don't be shocked if people aren't accepting, because most likely they don't know how to deal with you. But that's not the point. The point is you know how to deal with them, and as long as you can relate to them, then that ice is broken.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome. Yeah, great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is built, like knocking down those walls. I mean, you have one step ahead of everybody, and that's always how I always viewed it. Like initially, it wasn't easy, being an American kid going overseas in the culture. But I was so young. I mean, we've talked about this, and maybe you were the same way. Well, it is the same way when you went to TAS. I mean, as long as there were kids of your age, nobody cared what you looked like. They didn't care about skin color. Nobody cared. Like, are you good at tetherball? Are you good at soccer? Let's go play. Who cares, right? We didn't give a crap. So I wish that was the case. I hope it's still the case. The older you get, of course, life experiences and cultures get involved. But it truly, what a blessing. Right. I mean, the way I view it to this day is what a blessing. You're married to a TCK and you guys have a shared experience. Does that come up at all? I mean, I kind of am backtracking a little bit, but like the fact that you and Pam are both TCKs and went through the same experience, I would think that would help a lot. Like,
I think what's the good thing is that, we can totally relate to each other.
Yeah.
She knows exactly what I'm talking about and I know exactly what she's thinking,
Yeah.
We see something, our reactions are pretty much the same. Like, why? I don't need to explain to her like, oh, yeah, I'm thinking this because this happened when I was younger and stuff. There's no explanation.
She gets it.
Yeah, she get it.
Yeah. That's awesome, and I think that's why we all still connect. I mean, obviously, there's a marriage. Also, just this friendship we've all kept. I mean, I look forward to those Zoom chats because. And I've talked to my wife about this. My wife is cool. She didn't grow up the way we did, but luckily for me, she's always been a world traveler. And that's probably why I waited for so long to get married. But she understands the concept. I don't, I mean, unless you went through it, you never really truly get it. But she understands the need to explore. And she grew up. Her mom worked for the airlines. I've said this a couple of times. And so she was able to travel a lot as a kid. She didn't live there, but she was able to travel. And so it's not necessarily second nature to her, but she gets it. She gets where I'm coming from. She understands why maybe I don't understand things here in the States, or maybe a certain aspect of, being here all the time. Because you and I don't know about you, but I was so used to moving every few years. And I think that's such a normal aspect of being a TCK, right? We get antsy. We get antsy when we're stuck in the same place for a while. And so, I look forward to getting back to Asia one of these days. Obviously the world's a different world right now, but even when we went on our honeymoon, there was no doubt about it. We weren't going to just stay local. We weren't going to stay in the States. We hopped on a plane and went to Italy. I mean, it was just, it's in the blood, right? So I don't know if you feel the same way, but just traveling and going to new places, experiencing new cultures and people and things like that. That's just in the blood. It's in the DNA. Is that how you feel too, or?
Hmm. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all. I think that's why we all still 30 years later, we're all still, it's easy to pick up a phone and talk to Wilson. It's easy to pick up a phone and talk to Tim. We all get it. And yet, like I said, the whole concept of me wanting to have you on, obviously we grew up very similar, but diversity too. We had different experiences, and yet it all comes back together. I think, the core of this and being a TCK, we all have the same underlining. We all have an appreciation for people and cultures. We could, mainly because we grew up with it, and it wasn't anything to us. It was what it was. It was our story, not better, not worse, but it was our story. And that's still to this day, that's the core of who I am, and how I make my life connections and decisions is truly based on that, and I like to think that I'm not alone in saying that. So,
Yeah. I feel exactly the same way as pretty much.
do you feel a sense of belonging now? Is that more like a California thing, or do you still struggle with the concept of belonging and home and all that, or are you pretty content right now?
No, I'm pretty good right now. I mean, I'm sure LA makes it easier, just because it's more diversified.
Well, then I hate to ask, are you a Lakers fan? Are you a Dodgers fan? Like, how does that work?
Well, I got to be a Dodgers fan because my kids are the Dodgers team, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I still want to survive here, so I'm going to say I am.
Not a Clippers. Clippers are the team now, right?
Well, maybe. Yeah.
If they ever play again, it's going to be a while. So.
I always have this talk when it comes to basketball. It's like I pretty much, I'm going to be pretty straight with you, but I pretty much stopped watching basketball after Jordan.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
I think I went to a Lakers game once.
Yeah.
This whole time I was here.
Really? Okay. Through the good years or the bad years, was Kobe still playing, or was that after the fact?
When Kobe was still playing.
Okay. Yeah, living in Utah, that is one perk. I mean, I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I worked as a medic for a little while in EMT, and I actually used to work the Jazz game, so I got to see. I get paid to watch the Jazz play. That was a pretty good gig. I did that part time when I was teaching the first time around. So, but yeah, that was fun. So I'm the same way though. I mean, I'm biased because of our age. I mean, what's going on with the Jordan stories and all that right now? I mean, Jordan was Jordan. Come on. So, which is cool because, like I said, the second half of this interview was always designed to be more just life, and you and I have kind of started that already. But let me ask you this, because I've been asking everybody, and it's kind of the cheesy question that I'm going to throw at you. But quarantine life, how are you guys doing? What's a normal day like, and then what are you guys binging on? How's the home parenting or home teaching thing going?
We're just stuck at home pretty much all day. It's actually tiring because the kids have their Zoom classes at home.
Yeah,
which means you can't really do anything.
Mm-hmm. Do you work from home still, and Pam works from home, or how's that working?
Well, we both do.
Okay.
Because you not unless you're I think if you are a necessity
essential worker,
nobody can go in right now. But with the kids at home, it's really tough to work. Maybe like for a teenager or something, that's fine. But like a 3-year-old, it's impossible. Like my son, if I'm not sitting there next to him, he's just gonna wander off and go do his own stuff. And
I have a dog. When my wife and I have a dog, and just the dog alone is driving me crazy during the weekday or the workday. So I get it, man. And plus the fact that I come from the education world, it is funny for me to hear like parents listening in now, and it's a whole new world right now. So
kids to concentrate using Zoom actually. Just imagine.
I no idea. I don't know.
Screen all day long trying to focus. It's almost impossible. So I mean that's pretty much life right now, and we try to keep everything as normal as possible. If we go out for a bike ride or something, staying safe, and otherwise we're just here. And I think it's another month we gotta stay here.
It's looking like it. Yeah, it's looking like it. There were 40. I don't know how you guys are at today, but yeah, there were. It's crazy times, man, and I'm not making light of anything right now, but it's just stay home from me if you can, because we're over 200, almost 200 cases again today. It's I don't think this is going away anytime soon, man. So it's which is sad, because people like you and people like I, man, we want to hop on a plane and go somewhere. That's not happening for a while. So I mean, I don't know if you watched Tim's thing. Tim even since Zoom the other night. So we talked about the airline industry. You know, they're seeing like a 10%. You know, that everything's at 10% right now in terms of airlines, which is crazy, because all I want to do is hop on a plane and go somewhere. But that's not happening. That's not. I want to go to Asia. That's not happening. So
I mean, I don't do sports or anything. You know,
yeah,
can't play tennis. All the courts are closed, and
yeah.
you can't even play golf, which I don't understand. It's like the safest thing, man. You're in an open field, limited to just 4 people at a time. Why are you closing the golf course? You know,
they open those up here. I think I saw, because when I go to work, I've been popping in and out of work, and I drive by a golf course when I go to work, and they seem to be opening it lightly. I don't want to say that it's
where you are
full. Yeah, where I'm at. Yeah, I've noticed that there's some of the golf courses that are open right now. So
it's all closed.
Really,
there's nothing. Yeah,
you're not going to the beaches, are you?
No.
Okay, good. How far away do you live? I'm just curious, because I'm going to come crash on your couch one of these days. So
we're literally just 10 minutes from.
Is it okay? Okay, yeah. How's the? I gotta ask, because this is what brought us to this conversation to begin with. How's your boy doing? Have you been working with him baseball wise, or how's that going?
Yeah, I mean, I try your tip with volleyball.
Yeah,
and he loves it. He's able to hit everyone. So he's like, wow, this is, you know, I can hit this. This is easy. You know, then he's starting to be cocky and stuff like that.
I wonder where he gets that. I'll No, but that's the whole point, right? You get them to the point of feeling comfortable and confident, and then the sky's the limit. So that's awesome, man. We're actually we're getting kind of close to the end. I just realized, though, in StreamYard here, kind of, I don't know if you noticed this, but propped something up earlier saying that unfortunately you and I were not able to see the conversations that were going along with people that were watching this. But I just checked my phone a little while ago while you were talking, and it looks like a lot of people have chimed in, but for whatever reason, you and I couldn't see it this time. Most of the time, it's people that couldn't see ours. So there were conversations going on. So once we get off, you'll have to watch those and look at who chimed in. But there were a lot of people, so I didn't want you to think that nobody was chiming in for whatever reason. I think it was just a glitch in StreamYard tonight. So, but those of you that were watching, thank you. We're not quite done yet, because I always end these with the most serious question of the entire interview, and hopefully, if you've been watching, you know what's coming. I like beer. That's no secret. I like having a drink with my buddies and things like that. So the old question to kind of sign this off, and has nothing to do with being a TCK. This just has everything to do with being a dude, I guess, or a person who likes a drink every now and then. So it's the beer question, and most people seem to be happy with this question. But if you could, I don't know if you're a beer drinker, if you're a whiskey, you told me you're a whiskey drinker, and by no means, like I've always told everybody, don't think this is just water in here. So, but if you could, alive or dead, if you could have a drink, let's just say a drink, not even necessarily beer, but if you could have a drink with anybody, alive or dead, pick their brain for an hour, talk to them the way you and I have been talking, who would it be and why?
Wow. That was one of the questions?
Yeah, I thought it was on there. Well, maybe it wasn't, because I always just throw this out there. It's just kind of a standard question. This is what we conclude everything with. So, putting you on the spot, I guess, this time. So,
yeah, I probably have a drink with my grandpa.
Nice. Why is he still with us?
No, he passed away a long time ago. Like when I was in college, first year college, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Why were you? I'm assuming you guys are close, yeah?
We were close, but like I said, he was always in Hong Kong, so I see him once every 3 months. That's it. I heard stories from my parents of him and what a wonderful guy and his life and stuff. But I never really knew him. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'd like to sit down with him as an adult and kind
Yeah.
of pick his brain and like understand how he grew up and stuff like that.
So
And
he was in Hong Kong.
he was in his younger years. He was in Indonesia.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me that. Okay.
To Hong Kong.
God, think of the things he saw in his lifetime,
Yeah,
right?
and his whole experience with everything. The grandpa I knew was the one that I see every holiday, and then pretty much once. And when I say once, I mean like I fly there on Friday, I fly back to Taiwan on Sunday, so that's just
Yeah.
like 2 days. So I don't really have a lot of interaction with him, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, yeah,
I get it, man. I get it. I lost my dad's side. We had just That's funny you say that because we had just moved to Hong Kong when
yeah,
my dad's dad died. And he and I, it's my understanding we were very similar. He was a baseball guy. I knew him, like I remember him, my brother too. But yeah, that'd be cool to sit back and have a beer with those kind of guys that just saw
especially
the world.
not like a kid and a grandpa, more like
Right.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'd want it now. Like not as a 7-year-old kid. I'd like to see what he thinks of the world and where, things have advanced and just this is a totally different place than they were used to and just, just pick his brain. My grandpa, my brother's grandpa was a D-Day survivor. So he was one of the first in and whatnot. I mean, here I am whining and complaining about certain things and at the, the age he was when he, stormed the beaches of Normandy. It was just like, good Lord, I could barely tie my shoes and he was off, landing on the beaches of Normandy. So, at the same age. So no, I get it totally. I'd love to pick the brains. And then my mom's side, same thing. He was a World War II guy too, as well. So,
yeah.
I totally get that.
Be exciting. I mean, just to pick their brain and
Right.
how their thought process work and
Oh yeah,
they're going
totally.
through and if ask them if you were in our situation or how you would deal with things and stuff like that. I bet you they would just like smack us in the head and be like,
Yeah, get over yourself, right? Get over yourself. Snap out of it. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I wish I could say no, but no, I totally agree with that. Just their perspective. It was a different world back then, but to see what they would think of the world right now and how you and I are just finding our way through it, man. That's people are people. So everybody's got their own story and just kind of getting through this thing called life as we are. So, uh, I usually wrap this up by giving you a minute or two to the guest a minute or two just to kind of say anything else they want to say, man. I mean, you don't have to, but it's kind of just opening it up to you right now. We've been going for about an hour and a half, and that's awesome. I could keep talking to you. You're a brother to me, but if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead and say it, man.
no, I think what you're doing is great. It's interesting. It takes a pandemic for people to get in touch.
Right.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's so weird. You're supposed to be on lockdown and everybody's at home, but yet you're getting in touch with all these people. You feel like
Yeah.
somewhere you're getting closer to everybody. So I think it's sort of cool, like to be able to do this. And for all those, I love your TCK subject. I think there's definitely a lot of us out there, and just want to say, don't be scared, I guess, or it's great. It's great to have this experience and embrace it, and it will be so useful for you. I found it really useful um, for myself later on in life, more so in the work life later on, um, and it's gonna you're gonna love it later on. Yeah, um, yeah,
Yeah, there are moments where you scratch your head and go, "What the hell?" And then the other 99.9%, you're gonna love it. I piggyback on that totally because it's who I am. It's who the core of who you are. It's just who we are. Like I've said all along, it's not a better or worse thing. It doesn't. I don't feel like I'm better than anybody. It's just that's our story, right? So
exactly.
um, but listen, man, it's crazy that I want to keep going back to this, and I so appreciate you opening up to me on the phone a couple weeks ago because my eyes were open, and it's crazy to think that we lived the exact same life, and yet there were parts of it that were so extremely different. And yet here we are 30 years later talking, man, on a webcast. So this is cool. You're a good dude. You always were. I always appreciated you as a teammate, as a friend, and all that stuff. I mean, we're so different in so many ways. I mean, we could probably check off so many ways we're different than equal, but at the end of the day, we're the same, man. And I appreciate you, and just give my best to Pam. I don't know your kids yet. One of these days I'll make it out to Cali and we'll have to meet up and have some beers for real. But yeah, if you ever have any questions with baseball, I don't claim to be the godsend of baseball, but super happy to help out. But Pam is awesome. I hope she knows I truly do adore her, and I always have. And just give my best to her, and give my best to your kids. And listen, brother, thank you for doing this. It's fun. I told you, like, it goes an hour and a half goes by like that, right? I feel like we just started talking. So yeah, so it's kind of a wild thing, but I deeply, appreciate you, and I'm happy for you, and you're doing well, man. And anything I can do to help you guys out, let me know. But yeah, we're all connected, man. At the end of the day, we all bleed the same color, right? So I hope that's the one thing that people get from this, and the fact that there's so many that grew up like you did. It's not even about me right now. I mean, we're TCKs, you and I, but there are so many kids right now that don't know who to talk to, don't know where to go, and I hope they're watching this, or at least to get shown this, because there's, the way you grew up, I think people need to recognize that and hear your story. And I appreciate you being on and being open about that, because I do think you're helping a lot of people that are watching this, or even people that grew up like we did and have kids like you do. Everybody just wants to feel loved and connected, man. And that's what this show's about. So I appreciate you, man. Take care of yourself. Say hi to Pam. And the rest of you out there, thank you for watching. Next week, we have another TCK on. He's a little bit older. It's going to be kind of a cool situation. He is a TAS graduate, but he's a little bit older than me, and he's from Holland, and we'll get to that next week. But Wilson, you're my brother, man. Thank you for doing this, and we'll chat soon, all right?
All right.
All right, buddy. Take care of yourself. The rest of you, thanks for watching BenThere. This will be reposted on BenThere.org. I'm hoping to move this over to a YouTube channel soon so everybody can see it. But the rest of you, thanks for watching. Until next time, we're out. See you later.